Good morning. This is Paula's desk. I hope you're doing well. We got all of our Christmas decorations put away and we have cleaned everything up and it looks nice. I really do like it. And we've started walking our dog in the really cold weather. It's about 20 degrees, sometimes about 30 as we walk in the snow along the river, but it's beautiful and the days have been nice other than it's cold. And today my husband is ice fishing. He loves to ice fish with our son David, and our other son Eric was ice fishing in New Mexico and caught lots of perch. I think they were perch, but anyway, so they're enjoying the winter season. Sometimes I think I would, after Christmas is over, I'd just rather not do January and February and go on into the spring so that, we can get into spring planting and watch the flowers start blooming and things like that. But January and February can be really neat months, and they can be time when we kind of get ourselves organized for the year and plan out our year and decide what we're going to do. Maybe we want to start new habits. They say that successful people, it's not that they do these big glorious things, it's just the little things they do every day that make them successful. So just think about those little things you do every day. And I've told my students, even getting up in the morning at the same time every day, making your bed, eating a good breakfast, a good healthy breakfast. And some people can't eat right away, but eat it later. Just eat healthy throughout the day. Get out and walk. Enjoy the fresh air. Our bodies need vitamin D, and the sunshine is one of the few ways you can get it, unless you take vitamin D supplements, which we have to do here. Today, I am back in Luke, and this is a really neat story about Jesus, and this is one of the last stories about him as a child. So I think it's really neat. This is when Jesus speaks with the religious leaders, and it's Luke 2:41 through 52, I believe. And I'm just going to start reading and then we'll talk about it. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the Passover festival. When Jesus was 12 years old, they attended the festival as usual. After the celebration was over, they started home to Nazareth. But Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents didn't miss him at first because they assumed he was among the other travelers. But when he didn't show up that evening, they started looking for him among their relatives and friends. So at 11, some commentaries say that Jesus was considered an adult, but 11-year-old boy is still a child, I think. And he had gained his independence, and it said here that some of the kids stayed with the women and some stayed with the men, so the groups usually remain separate. So Mary probably thought he was with the men, and Joseph thought he was with the women. So they didn't miss him until evening, probably when supper came along. If a young man doesn't show up for supper, there's something wrong, because they like to eat at that age. And boys about 11 start getting their height, and sometimes their voices start changing about 11 or 12, and that 11 to 13 actually. And they, girls a lot of times are taller than boys until they hit that 11 mark, and then from 11 to 13, boys start really shooting up and maturing and becoming young men. And I know our boys, when they reached that, about 12, 13, it was like, oh my goodness, we're dealing with a teenager now. They were good, but they definitely had some moodiness and some issues, but and that's normal. That's a normal part of growing up. And you may wonder what Passover was. Passover was when it says here, Passover commemorated the night of the Jews' escape from Egypt, when God had killed the Egyptian firstborn that had passed over the Israelite homes. Passover was the most important of the 3 annual festivals. And the other, according to God's law, every male was required to go to Jerusalem 3 times a year for these festivals. And in the spring, the Passover was celebrated, followed right away by the festival of the unleavened bread. And and I don't remember what the third one is, but anyway, that's what, Mary and Joseph were following the Jewish law for Passover. And I'm going to go ahead and read. When they couldn't find him, they went back to Jerusalem to search for him there. 3 days later, they finally discovered him in the temple, sitting among the religious leaders, listening to them and asking questions. All who heard him were amazed at his understanding and answers. His parents didn't know what to think. "Son," his mother said to him, "why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been frantic, searching for you everywhere." And he said, "But why did you need to search?" he asked. "Didn't you know that I must be in my Father's house?" But they didn't understand what he meant. Then he returned to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. And his mother stored these things in her heart. And Jesus grew up in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and all people. So Mary and Joseph were just frantic. 3 days. You couldn't, in today's time, we would be calling the sheriff, we would report a missing person to the police. We would really be frantic about that. And they were just, and I'm sure Mary was thinking, God gave me this child that's the Messiah, and I haven't been taking very good care of him. I let him out of my sight, and now he's no place to be found. And Simeon had predicted that he would pierce her heart, that it would things that happened to him would be sad. And so she was probably thinking about that. And I'm just wondering if Jesus, and I'm sure God had let him know from the beginning that he had a mission, and he had a purpose, and he probably let him know what his purpose was. But about 11 to 13, we start thinking about what career we want to go into. Even sometimes little children say, "Oh, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a policeman," and or girls that say, "I want to be a princess or a ballerina." Well, I imagine Jesus was thinking, this is what I want to do. I want to learn about God's Word. I want to teach people about God and His Word. That's what I want to do. So I think this was the kind of the time of awakening for him, that he loved this. He knew he was called to this. He knew that he was not called to be a carpenter. But I thought it was really neat. He went back home with Mary and Joseph. He obeyed them. He worked, I'm sure, as a carpenter, and carpenters have really rough hands and muscles, and they work hard. And he helped support the family. And Joseph died, they say maybe when Jesus was between 15 and 20 years old, and I don't know how they figure that out, but Jesus, being the oldest, probably had to support the family for a while until his other brothers and sisters could come up and start working and help support the family. But so I love this where it says Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and all people. So people knew that God was with him, and I'm sure even before he started his ministry, he loved to talk to people about God's will for them. And growing up, I'm sure there were, I'm sure there were girls that thought, oh, I would love to have Jesus for my husband, but Jesus knew that was not his calling. He knew God had a purpose for him. And so, and he fulfilled that purpose. And Jesus, at 30 years old, he started his ministry. He chose his disciples, and we'll go more into that in the next lessons. But I think this is the time in that temple where his parents found him. I think that's the time when he found out, really, this is what I want to do. This is my calling. This is what God's called me to do. So I just love this. It says here, the second chapter of Luke shows that although Jesus was unique, he was a normal child. He had a normal childhood and adolescence. In terms of development, he went through the same progression we do. He grew physically and mentally. He related to other people, and he was loved by God. A full human life is balanced. Thus, it was important to Jesus, and it should be important to all believers, to develop fully and harmoniously in each of these key areas: physical, mental, social, and spiritual. So I don't know if you have a calling in your life. I know for me, I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be a dietitian, and my first degree was with emphasis in nutrition. And then later on, after I had my family and we moved to a small town, and I needed to get a job, I thought, well, maybe teaching's not so bad. So I went back and got my master's degree in teaching, and I found I loved it. It took me a lot of years. I was probably 30 when I thought, this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I still love it. Even at my age, I'm still teaching. So I think God has a purpose and a calling for every person. And you need to use your gifts and your talents for the Lord and to help other people. It's not just about making money. Teachers are probably some of the poorest paid, educated people that there are, but it's a calling. We care about our students. We want our students to succeed. It's a calling of the heart, and I think Jesus had that calling. It wasn't about, oh, I need to go out and make money. I need to be who's who in America or who's who in Israel. He thought, I needed to teach people about God and God's will for their life. So I love the story. I hope you did too. I just pray that you will be blessed. And if you haven't decided on a career, I would really pray about it. Ask God to guide you and lead you. And many of us have careers, and then we do our ministry on top of that. So it's neat when the two can combine. But just ask God what He wants you to do and follow that calling, and don't give up. Never give up. Just keep going. Even if things get hard, just keep going. Anything worthwhile takes effort and work, and God will pave the way for you. But I thank you for coming and being with me today. I ask God to bless you. Thank you.